So if you do the presentation mode, it will start the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, can it be seen?
Yes. I can
Okay.
see.
So this is a second lecture which I shall connect to my first lecture and see if it makes sense. But even before that, let us have a look at the contents in brief. See, we will cover one slide on analysis versus design. What does it mean? Many people will do this again and again so that the participants come to know the difference between analysis and design to a certain level, but many times it is not that clear. Then we'll have some general information on linear programming, which is the topic that we'll be covering in this lecture. Invariably, the linear programming is always attempted for what is called as a standard problem. So we'll see what is a standard problem and compare that with what is called a non-standard problem. We'll spend quite some time on the graphical solutions of linear programming in 2D. That means there are two design variables or two variables which represent the design of the system, and how to optimize the system with these two design variables in a two-dimensional plane is what we shall spend time on. Then we shall have a couple of slides on why do we need a special algorithm in linear programming. That is something which we shall have a look at. Then we'll look at a method which is called a simplex method, which is a very popular method. And this is one of the first methods that you are supposed to sort of study. Though this is not the only method. In fact, this is one of the simplest methods. It is just scratching the surface of the complexity of the linear programming. But that's good enough. Even here, this method is studied in phase 1 and phase 2. We will not have time for phase 1 and phase 2 both. So we shall cover what we call as phase 2 first. We will not study phase 1. And we will do all this through some example, one or two examples, depending on the time that's available. I suggest that if you want to learn linear programming, refer to the book which I have indicated in this slide. Where the material in this slide is taken from this book. And it's a good book to read. Okay, so I think going back to what I said, analysis versus design. In yesterday, my lecture, I said we always convert everything into maths, whether it is operations, whether it's a product, whether it's whatever that you have, whether even the operations or even a war, for example, or whatever that is there can be converted into some kind of mathematics. And what happens to that product, how the product performs, or how an operation happens, can be analyzed. But it may so happen that the product or the operations work in a fashion which is not acceptable to us, or which may not be optimal. For example, aircraft, you have designed an aircraft with a range, let's say 200 kilometers, but it turns out to be that it is only 190 kilometers. So you need to optimize it. So you keep doing optimization, but it so happens optimization doesn't happen in one go. It is not a one-step solution. Many times you start with the system, try to optimize it, you get something which is close to what you want, but it's not adequate enough. So again, do the analysis and like that. So there is a loop which is between the analysis and the optimizer. Optimizer is the one which helps you take you close to the optimized product or the optimized process. So design involves selection of next, possibly better. Possibly better, I'm saying because it has to be monotonic. It may not be monotonic. To the next design candidate if the optimal has not been arrived at. If not done systematically, this process can be very costly in terms of time and efforts. At worst, the iterations may not be ending at all. So the loop that is indicated here is what we are attempting in this workshop. All the time we will be talking either on analysis, and yesterday we talked about multidisciplinary analysis, how to have a very complex analysis carried out using what is called as component or math models, or many times called as modules, is what we have seen. Anyway, so this is the same thing, it's just that it is explained a little better. Anyway, so linear programming is an optimization method. In the sense, yesterday we talked about multidisciplinary analysis. how to analyze the product. We scratched the surface of what we wanted to do, and we had an overview of how different modules belonging to different physics or different processes can be assembled together through components, and how to organize them to reduce the computational time and data coming the the exchange of data. That is what we did yesterday. We never said how to optimize it, in the sense how to make the product, how to change the variables that go into it so that the system that is designed or the product that we have made becomes optimal. That we do by using what is called an optimizer. Optimizer is like an analysis, separate software or a separate methodology which changes the design variables. What is linear programming? So linear programming is one of the methods where the optimization or the what we want to achieve, what we want to optimize is written down as the linear function of design variables. And in linear programming, the analysis part is supposed to be only a set of equations with some bounds, upper bounds or lower bounds on the design variables. So that is what is not said here, but this is what I implied. So in a linear programming, the analysis consists of several equality constraints, which are linear functions of unbounded and bounded variables. But in reality, what they represent is some kind of an analysis, which is analysis of the system. So linear programming is used in several applications such as logistics, economics, engineering, telecommunication, etc. And to solve the linear programming problem, we use a method called a simplex method, which is a popular but a heuristic algorithm. There are no mathematical basis for it, but some heuristic arguments are given, and then you arrive at what is called as an optimal solution. We must understand that simplex method is a good method when the number of design variables is very small. Why I'm saying this is, like it happens in other problems, method is very simple. The cost function is a linear function. The analysis part is written down as a set of equations or inequalities. So the entire maths is very small. It's very simple. The complexity now is sort of brought in with the number of design variables, which could be in millions. It may not be very small in size. What is said, what I want to tell you is the simplex algorithm works when the number of variables is, let's say, hundreds, maybe thousands. But when the number of variables is very large, you need some other method of linear programming to do the design. So it's only this simplex algorithm. We will not look into other algorithms. Okay. So having said this, irrespective of whether it is solved by simplex method or any other method, this is a statement of the linear programming problem. We would like to minimize a function minimize a cost function which is j. It is a function of number of variables n, x1, x2 to xn, and it is written down as a linear expression. So c1 x1 plus c2 x2 plus etc. cn xn. x1 to xn are design variables. This is subjected to condition which are m in number and they are equalities. So there are m equalities this additional in linear programming, we put one more constraint saying that all the design variables x1 to xn must be greater than or equal to 0. So the m equations and m inequalities of that x1 to xn must be greater than or equal to 0. They, in some sense, they represent the analysis part of the system. In this formulation, Aij, Bi, and Cj, they are all given and they are supposed to be known to us, and they are not supposed to be changing. What is required to be changed is x1 to xn. They are the ones which I am supposed to vary so that j is supposed to be minimized. One of the reasons why we say j is minimized is the roots of linear programming, where in the operations research, where j is required to be typically minimized. It represents a cost. So the root of linear programming is not in maximizing something like range, for example, or endurance, for example, which is typical in engineering. It has roots where j was required to be minimized, and that legacy continues, and we in linear programming minimize the cost function or minimize j, and j is a standard notation used in multidisciplinary optimization or optimization algorithms. Anyway, having said this, just to get used to, many times the linear programming is written in matrix form. So X is a bold X represents all design variable Xn. B is the right hand side of the equality constraints. C are the coefficients of the cost functions which define the cost. And A is a matrix which is M by N. Anyway, some comments we shall make. Remember, M are equality constraints which represents the analysis of the system. And N is the number of design variables. If the number of equations is less than the number of unknowns, this set of equations which generates X becomes underdetermined, and this would give you infinite number of solutions, because the constraints, the number of unknowns is less than number of unknowns is more than the number of conditions that you are putting on them. Therefore, there are infinite number of possibilities of getting the values for the unknowns. What we are seeking is, out of those infinite possible solutions, we are looking at getting one of the solution which minimizes j. Okay, so this, in fact, the first bullet is the one which is where the linear programming problem resides. In case the number of variables is same as the number of equality constraints, then you get unique values for all the design variables which are n in number. There's hardly anything to optimize. This is a degenerate linear programming problem. We are not looking at this problem at all. If m is greater than n, then it is not a well-posed problem. You are putting too many conditions and there are very few design variables. You will never get any solution because you are bound to violate any one of the conditions out of, at least one of the condition out of several conditions, depending on how big is m compared to n. So one of the first thing that you need to do if you want to write a linear programming code is make sure that m is less than n and then proceed. As I told you, the linear programming problem is code is written or the way it is attempted, or the first thing that we need to do is when you use a standard package of linear programming is put the problem in a so-called a standard form. If it is not in standard form, you'll have to convert it into standard form. So first of all, let us define what is a non-standard form. It may so happen that your system or the problem that you are looking at, the objective function is not required to be minimized, but it is required to be maximized. If such a thing happens, we call the linear programming as a non-standard form. It may so happen that the constraints are inequalities. I told you there are m equalities, which represent the systems, the working of the system. But it may so happen the working of the system may not be in the form of equality, but may be in the form of inequality. If such a thing happens, it is the linear programming problem is called as a non-linear, in non-standard form. One more thing, design variables can be negative because we may choose any design variable. There are so many possibilities where the variable happens to be negative. If such a thing happens in linear programming, we call that as a non-standard form. Remember, in linear programming, all design variables must necessarily be positive or equal to 0. They cannot be negative. So this is what it is. This is The same thing is being talked about here. No, but supposing that we have the linear programming in non-standard form, how do we convert it into standard form? So here, supposing the cost function j as a function of x1 to xn is required to be maximized for whatever reasons. So instead of maximizing the j, we rewrite j as a negative of the original j. So j dash is minus of j. Now j dash is required to be minimized is the same as maximizing j. So first step is done. The second step is the following. The standard form LP demands only equality constraints. There are m equality constraints, but it may so happen that any one of the equality constraints may be not, it may not be equal to 0, but it may be inequality. So here, for example, I may have one of the kth condition out of m conditions is written as less than or equal to bk. This is inequality equation. This is inequality condition, and I cannot accept it in the standard form. So what do? I add what we call the slack variable. So xn plus 1 is an artificial variable, additional variable, which is necessarily positive, is added to the kth equation, and now instead of inequality less than or equal to bk, with the addition of xn plus 1, it becomes equality with the right hand side equal to bk. Note that xk plus 1 necessarily is positive as required by standard form of the linear programming, and the number of variables now has gone up by 1. Earlier, the number of variables was only n, but I have added one more variable, xn plus 1. So the number of variables has gone up by 1. This was the case when we had inequality less than or equal to. It may so happen I may have inequality which is greater than or equal to. In such a case, you can add what is called a surplus variable. Sorry, not add, subtract surplus variable. So xn minus 1, xn plus 1 can be added. And greater than or equal to bk is converted into equal to bk. And we have added one variable xn plus 1, which is necessarily positive. So like that, you can keep doing this. It may so happen again, the physics of the problem or the methodology of the operation may be such that the design variables could be positive or negative. There is no guarantee. Now, how do we do this? So, to convert the non-standard form involving negative variables, for example, the xj can be a negative variable. So, what we do is we write this xj as a difference of two non-negative variables. So xj can be written as xj dash minus xj double dash. And now you can see that xj can be positive or negative depending on whether xj is more than xj double dash or xj double dash is more than xj. So positive 0 or negative values for xj are positive. But we will insist that xj dash and xj double dash is greater than or equal to 0. So you will realize by adding two design variables, you are able to take two artificial design variables, both of them positive, will let you accept any variable irrespective of whether it is positive, negative or 0. So what I am trying to indicate is standard form, converting a non-standard form to standard form doesn't restrict the scope of the linear programming methodology. It's possible that a non-standard form can be converted into standard form without creating any restriction on the utility of the method. Anyway, having said this, let us look at the solution to standard LP problem with two design variables. So, linear programming with two design variable case is indicated graphically here, where the x1 is shown on the horizontal axis and x2 is shown on the vertical axis. We will not bother for the time being equality constraints on x1 and x2, but we will only look at the inequality the positivity of the design variable x1 and x2. Since x1 and x2 are required to be positive, the solution must lie necessarily in the first quadrant, which we call as a feasible solution. So any value of x1 and x2 which is lying in the first quadrant is acceptable, but it doesn't mean it's optimal. So it's a feasible region. But if x1 is negative or x2 is negative or both of them are negative, we have what is called infeasible region. So what this graph is trying to tell you is all the values of x1 and x2 in the first quadrant are acceptable, but the one that gives minimum value of j is the one which we are seeking. Okay. Now, which one are we looking at? So let us have a look at now. Supposing I now start searching for the optimal value. Supposing if c1 is greater than 0 and c2 is greater than 0, and I have defined j as x1 into c1 plus c2 into x2. If c1 and c2 are greater than 0, then the solution would be at the origin, because that is the case for which j is the least, and that is x1 is equal to 0 and x2 is equal to 0, because c1 and c2 are positive, and the origin will turn out to be the solution. Remember, we cannot go below the origin into the second or the third quadrant or the fourth quadrant, because it will become infeasible solution. So c1 x1 is equal to 0 and x2 is equal to 0 is the solution in case c1 and c2 are greater than 0. But supposing, for example, c1 is less than 0 and c2 is equal to 0, then you will see that the solution becomes unbounded in x1, and it will be lying along x-axis somewhere. If c1 is greater than 0, c1 is less than 0 and c2 is less than 0, then the solution will be unbounded and it will go in the right quadrant towards infinity. Top right corner towards infinity. So this is how the solutions are, behavior of the solution is. Okay, to start with, I think this we have covered. So let us have a look at now the solution to the linear programming problem of two variables, but only one equality constraint. So as I said, if I forget for the time being equality constraint, the solution must lie in the first quadrant. Okay, x1 is greater than 0 and x2 is greater than 0 is the feasible solution. But supposing there is already one equality constraint, so equality constraint is a1 into x1 plus a2 into x2 is equal to b. If this is b, I think, yeah, okay. So if I have this as the equality constraints, then the solution must lie along this line, which is given by that. I don't know whether that line can be seen along that dotted line. Okay, so the solution lies along that dotted line. So any point lying on the dotted line satisfies the equality constraints. That means my system now is working. It may not be optimal. It is acceptable solution if x1, x2 lies along that line. But depending on how C1 and C2 are defined, the solution will be either lying along the x-axis or along the y-axis, because that is the place where the optima would lie. So here, this is what it is. Depending on how C1, C2 are, the solution is either on x-axis given by b upon a1, comma 0, with the j which is least, which is equal to c1 times b upon a1, or it is lying on the y-axis, which is x2 axis, and it is given by 0, comma b by 2, with j given by c2 into b into a2. See, the dotted lines and the arrow along the dotted lines, the one that is showing here, that tells you how the solution would be moving if you change the value of C1. How the value of J will change as you go along the line which is parallel to that line. These are the lines along which the dotted lines are the values. They are the values. They are the they are the design candidates for which C is for which J is constant. Okay. Now, this is a degenerate case where, supposing that there are two constraints, two equality constraints, and two design variables. If there are two equality constraints and two design variables, the basic solution actually doesn't exist, in the sense it has become degenerate. It automatically, two equations and two unknowns will fix x1 and x2. There's hardly anything to call as optimal value for the design, optimal value for x1 and x2. There's only unique value of x1 and x2, and this is a degenerate problem of optimization. We are not looking at this problem. Let's go to the next level. The solution to linear programming problem with three variables and one constraint. So here, the three design variables are shown by x1, x2, x3 in 3D space. And if I put one constraint, which is remember, it's a linear constraint, it will be a plane in 3D space, and it will intersect the three axes at the points b by a1 into b by a1 comma 0 comma 0, etc. Now, if I choose, if I write down the cost function as a linear combination of x1, x2, x3, again it will be a plane. And as I change and for constant value of j, my design variable should lie into that plane which is defined in three-dimensional space. Okay. So as I change x1, x2, x3, I will be moving parallel to the moment will be the moment of these parallel planes in 3D space. Depending on how C1, C2, C3s are defined, one of the solution will be the solution that we are looking at. So one of the vertex will be the solution to this problem. So that is what is written here. Let us read it. So three basic solutions exist. Okay. With 2 out of 3 design variables are 0. Any one of them can be optimal solution depending on the numerical values of C1, C2, C3. Remember, once C1, C2, C3 are there defined, you will get an equation for a plane, and it will be a as j changes, the plane will move parallel to. There will be several planes parallel to each other, and the plane which touches C1, x1, x2, x3 would be the one that we are seeking. Now it may so happen that if j is equal to constant plane touches any one of the instead of one, but it may touch two vertices. Then in that case, it becomes a non-unique solution because there will be several values of x1, x2, x3, which gives the same value of j. I think we'll go to the next level of complexity. It may so happen that linear programming problem is again given in terms of two design variables, but there is no equality constraint at all, but there are instead two inequality constraints. So here the way it is shown is the following. I have again the design variable okay, so the design space is shown in terms of x1 and x2, and equation number 1, A11 x1 plus A12 into x2 less than or equal to B1 is one of the constraints. Okay, then you will realize that the feasible solution lies to the left of that the green line, because this is one of the constraints. Just a minute, hold on for a minute. Yeah, okay. So this is the line to the left of this line, what is shown by blue color is the feasible region where the solution is acceptable, if this has been the only constraint. But if there is one more constraint which is given here, A21 into x1 plus A22 into x2 is less than or equal to B2. If this is also one more constraint, then the solution lies to the left of the blue line, which is again I am showing it by arrow. So this is the region which I am supposed to search, and this is the region which we call as a feasible region. Now, if I have a value, if I have J defined in terms of some C1, C2, then as the design variables x1, x2, x3 change, you will get different values of J, and those J is equal to constant surfaces or the lines. Just a minute. They will be going like this. So as the value of J, as the value of C1, C2 changes, the solution would be going from the right to the left, and then you will get the solution which is shown by the blue point there. It could be this point, or it could be this point, or it could be even this point. So basically the solution is always at the vertices, and there are 4 solutions which are acceptable solutions, or there are 4 solutions which are acceptable. When I am saying 4 solutions which are acceptable, what I mean is the constraints that x1, x2 is greater than or equal to 0 is satisfied. The conditions that inequality A11 into x1 plus A12 into x2 less than or equal to B1 is satisfied. And also the inequality A21 into x1 plus A22 into x2 less than or equal to B2 is also satisfied. So this is the region in which the solution is acceptable, and therefore it's a feasible region, and the solution lies at one of these 4 points. And that is what is the most important thing in the linear programming problem, that the solution is always located at the vertices of the convex region in the design space. Okay. Okay. Now it may so happen the same problem, but just that it may so happen that C1, C2 are such that the cost function is the same, then this is the line. But as the cost function changes, C1, C2 vary, as x1, x2, x3 vary, it may so happen my solution becomes like this, and J is equal to constant line doesn't touch this vertex, but it becomes parallel, it overlaps this line, the constraint line. In that case, the optimal design lies on this curve, the entire curve. That means there are several designs which are optimal, and therefore it becomes a non-unique design problem, design solution to the linear programming problem. Okay. Now we'll go to the next level. Solution to linear programming problem with 2 variables but 3 constraints. So let us define the problem. Problem is minimize J C1 is equal to C1 x1 plus C2 x2 subjected to equality constraints. A11 x1 plus A12 into x2 is equal to B1, etc. And x1, x2 are positive or non-negative. Can we get a solution to this problem? No, it is not possible, because the number of equality constraints is more than the number of design variables. So therefore, there is no solution to this problem. So this is hardly thing which we can have a solution. But instead of this problem, which is with the equality constraints, let us look at the same problem, but instead of three inequalities, let us say we have three inequalities. Will the solution to this problem exist? As I said, this will have to be inequality constraints, linear equations with inequality constraints will have to be converted into equality constraints. So a11 into x1 plus a12 into x2 less than or equal to b1 is not equality constraints. It will have to be converted to equality constraints. So you convert that into equality constraints. So if you do that, we need to do this by adding the slack variable or the other variable, I forgot the name. So if you do that, surplus variable. So if you do that, the number of variables will go up by a factor of 3. So I will have not only x1, x2, x3, x1 and x2, but I will have x3 and x4 and x5. And since I'm going to do that, the number of variables now is going to be 3 plus 2. So, sorry. Instead of x1 and x2, I'll have x3, x4, x5. So now you will see that the number of equality constraints becomes 3, but the number of variables is 5. So this is acceptable, and this solution will give you non-trivial solution. So you said converting equality constraints to inequality constraints has made this problem from no solution to a perfectly fine problem with a well-defined solution. So this is that solution. So look in a 2D design space, you can see that there are 3 constraints which are shown by 3 different colors. There is the one which is shown by the red, which will say that the solution lies to the left of this line, which is shown by it is unfortunately shown by a blue line. Then there is another one which is shown by the blue line, and the third one shown by the green line. So the feasible region is what is shown as the convex region in the first quadrant, and the solution lies in that first quadrant, which is a feasible solution. But the optimal solution won't lie at the vertices, which are shown by 1, 2, 3, 4. Here the origin degenerate or not a degenerate, trivial solution is not shown. Okay. To summarizing so far, purely based on 2D problems, the following thing happens. A linear programming problem can have a unique and finite optimal solution. That is the one possibility. The second possibility is it can have infinite number of optimal solutions. That happens when the equation matches with the expression for J. This is the second possibility. The third is it can be unbounded solution. It may so happen, which we just saw a few seconds back, that there may not exist any solution whatsoever if there are equality constraints, which are larger in number compared to the number of design variables. Or it may have just one of the point, which is the only solution that is existing. It is not an optimal solution, but the only solution that happens. For example, 3 design variables and 3 equality constraints. The way we have sort of tried to attempt this problem can be said in the following 2 bullets. The linear programming is formulated. The standard LP linear programming problem is formulated in such a way that the feasible region is a convex polygon, a polygon in which no line segment between the 2 points intersects the boundary or comes out of the boundary. So basically the solution lies inside that convex region, and that convex region is in the first quadrant of the 2D plane. The same thing can be said if the number of coordinates or the number of design variables is more than 2. We will have to visualize it, but it will be lying in the convex region in that space. This is point number 1. This is about the feasible region. That means acceptable design. That doesn't mean it's optimal design. Where will the optimal design lie? Optimal design line, you will have to stretch your imagination beyond what we have just talked about. The optimal solution will lie at the vertices, one of the vertices of this convex polygon in that space. So in a 2D space, it will lie at the convex at the vertex of the convex polygon in 2D, which is bounded by the axis x1 and x2. In 3D space, it will again lie in the convex at the vertices of the convex polygon, which is lying in 3D space and bounded by x1 is equal to constant line, x1 is equal to constant, x2 is equal to constant, and x3 is equal to constant planes. And the same thing will also be valid in a 4-dimensional or multi-dimensional space. Anyway, I think we have come to some conclusion of what we wanted to say to a certain level in linear programming. Now we'll have to we have a sort of some review of which we call the pivotal method in the solution of linear equation, which is a mathematical tool based on which the linear programming problem is solved. So this review has something related to linear programming problem, but nothing to do as a it's not a part of linear programming. It helps in understanding linear programming problem, which is the simplex method. So this is the beginning of the simplex method, and it requires some revision of solution of simultaneous linear equations. So I think we'll take a small break here, but I would like to ask if there are some questions from the audience. Hi, hello. Is there anything that you would like to ask, or is there something which is unclear? Because everything will be based on what we have covered so far at a conceptual level. Now it's a pure jugglery of terms and numbers that we shall be looking at.
So the participants are also reminded that there will be an assessment session at the end of the course, and the certificates will be awarded based on that performance in that assessment section. So it's good if you could clear your doubts now, so that you can get your certificates also. I mean, this is the requirement of AICTE.
Also, you have a look, you sort of think about those who give the presentation, like me, for example. It's very difficult for somebody like me who has used black and board for years, and suddenly we are entered into this era where I am supposed to talk to the computer, not able to see any one of the participant or his face.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Sir, you have explained in the solution to LP problem with two variables.
Right.
In that, if C1 is less than 0 and C2 is also less than 0.
Yes.
One thing I have cleared that if the two variables are less than 0, then it must lie in the third quadrant or in the first quadrant.
Just a minute again. Just
Would you
just
please
hold on.
explain that slide?
Yes, let us go to that slide, which is the slide that we are looking at. Just, I'll go to right from the first slide. Just let us go to. Ask me to stop when I am at the right slide.
Okay, sir.
Not this. This is how. This is where they.
No, not this. No, after this. Yes, sir. This one. Yes, sir. Top right corner. If C1 is less than 0 and C2 is less than 0. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, let us have a look at it.
Yes, sir.
See, this is a linear programming problem with two variables. There are no equality constraints.
Yes, sir.
So x1, x2 are not linked to any condition. That is something like a11 into x1 plus a12 into x2 is equal to b1. No condition is there. x1 can change independent of x2, and therefore the whole quadrant is available to you as a design space. I can choose whatever x1 I want. I can choose whatever x2 I want, and there is no relation between an x1 and x2 that it has to be it has to lie on a line. straight line. That is not the case. So I can choose whatever value of x1 and x2 I want. Now, if C1 is greater than, if C1 is greater than 0 and C2 is greater than 0, the value which is J is equal to C1 into x1 plus C2 into x2 is my cost function. The cost function will be minimum only if x1 and x2 are 0. Because C1 and C2 are positive, remember. Any value, positive value of x1 and x2 will make the cost function more. The minimum value of the cost function is 0 if C1 and C2 both are so if C1 and C2 are less than 0, if they are negative, J will become more and more negative as x1 and x2 increase. If C1 and C2 are positive, then as x1 and x2 become smaller and smaller, J will become smaller. And ultimately, the least value is obtained when x1 is 0 and x2 also is 0. So the value of the cost function is 0. That is what happens if C1 and C2 are greater than 0. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Remember, x1 and x2 will have to be greater than 0 is one of the conditions in the linear programming problem. It is a must.
Harish Bhatt is asking, is there any standard procedure for fixing cost function?
For fixing cost function,
Yes.
see, the cost function comes from the problem that I am trying to solve. For example, if I am doing manufacturing, I will do the following. I will add the bill of material, and the materials will, let us say there are 10 parts to a machinery, and each part has a cost associated with it. But there are different vendors giving parts to, anyway, so there are 10 parts and each part has a cost associated with it. And the number of parts can be variable, let us say, or something like the following. How do I say it? Supposing that I am supposed to distribute material to 10 different shops. I have to go to 10 different shops which are located at 10 different places through several routes, several paths. Each path will have a cost associated with it per kilometer. So the total cost that is required in traveling will be the cost to travel per kilometer multiplied by the length of the path, etc. So basically what I'm saying is, coming to the brass tacks, what matters is the cost function is not, it is not, it is coming out of it is not coming out of sky. It is coming from the problem definition that you are having. Many times it is not easy to have a linear cost function, but then you can make it a non-linear function can be converted into a linear function and use that as the objective function or the cost function. Many times it's called as an objective function also. So many times non-linear function is linearized, and linear programming is applied several times to arrive at the optimal function. But that's a different thing altogether. What I'm trying to tell you is the cost function is coming from the problem that you are attempting. It is not from making a non-standard LP problem to standard LP problem. Have I explained it?
Harish, do, okay. So Harish is.
Professor Harish, have I said it properly?
He says yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else that anybody would like to speak? Okay. So let us now go to how to solve this problem. Where is this? Where? Here it is. Okay. So linear programming problem, method of solving linear programming. One of the method, as I told you, is a simplex method, and simplex method requires some background in solution of simultaneous linear algebraic equations, and that is why we will have some couple of slides on the review of how to solve the linear equations first. Because the methodology in solution of the linear equations is the one which is used in linear programming. So the linear algebra problem, or the solution to the linear algebraic equations, is posed as the following. So let's assume that there are number of n number of equations. Remember, don't mix this n with now the n that we were talking about in the linear programming. This is a separate topic by itself, some couple of slides. So there are n equations and there are n unknowns. So there are n equations and there are n unknowns. How do we solve this determinate system of equations? One of the method of solving this equation is to reduce these equations in what is called a canonical form by using what is called a pivotal operation. So what I do is I do many row operations one after the other in such a fashion that the equations which are given, n equations which are given above, are converted into n equations which are given below. So what happens is, by using row operations, the first equation given on the top becomes the equation where the coefficient of x1 is 1 and the coefficients of all other x1, x2, x3, xn are 0. Obviously, b1 also gets modified to some other value of b1. Equation 2 gets converted into 0 into x1 plus 1 into x2, etc., etc., etc. So basically what happens is you get equations where the diagonal entries of the coefficients is 1 and off diagonal entries become 0. So such a thing is called as a pivotal operation, or you do this kind of a job, okay? So equations are converted in such a fashion that only diagonal entries are non-zero and 1, and all other off diagonal entries are 0. Okay? Now, what is the solution to this problem? The solution to this problem is very simple. x1 now is b1 dash, x2 is b2 dash, and like that. So once you do the pivotal operations, the solution is very simple. Solution is the right hand side. This RHS of the first equation is the first variable, the value of the first variable. RHS of the second equation is the value for the second variable, and like that. So this is what happens as you do the solution of the simultaneous equations, which are number of equations is same as the number of unknowns. Now let us have a look at how this pivotal operation can get used into linear programming problem. In a linear programming problem, the number of design variables happens to be n, but the number of equations is not n but m. So those equations are written down in a so-called a pivotal form. So if the number of equations is less than number of variables n, the pivotal operations with respect to any set of m variables will be like this: 1 into x1 plus all zeros till xm plus some coefficient into xm plus 1, some other coefficient with xm plus 2, etc., etc., till a coefficient into xn is equal to b1, and like that you can write it down. Just look at the way it is. So if you do this job, the first m terms of m equations would be very similar to what we did in the earlier slide. So all the diagonal coefficients of the equations will be 1, but all off diagonals would be off diagonal m first the off diagonals of the m equations will be 0, but the coefficients of all the m equations beyond m plus 1 till xn will be non-zero. So this is what will happen if you take the equality constraints of linear programming. This is what is going to happen. So if you convert your equality constraints in linear programming to this form, this we call as a canonical form. And in the canonical form, we have first m variables xm, x1 to xm, we call those as the pivotal variables. While the variables which are xm plus 1 till xn, they are called as non-pivotal variables. And of course, on the right hand side is the constants, which will have changed from the original value of b to the new values of b. What happens is it can be seen that xi, I, m plus 1, etc. can be set to any value. So you can choose whatever value you feel like for xm plus 1, xm plus 2, xm plus 3, etc. till xn, and get the value for x1, x2, x3, etc. xm in terms of these values, and you will have satisfied the equality constraints in linear programming. Let me repeat. You can choose whatever value that you want for xm plus 1, xm plus 2 plus xm plus 3, xm plus 4, etc. till xn, and get the values for x1, x2, x3 till xm in terms of these values, and you will have satisfied the equality constraints. Okay? So that is what is said. One of the solution for the above problem is, for example, xi, I varying from 1 to m is bi dash, and I have put xm plus 1, xm plus 2, xm plus 3, xm plus 4, they are all 0. Because I can choose whatever I have values that I want out of xm plus 1, xm plus 2, xm plus 3, etc. till xn, and that will not violate my equality constraints. Now this therefore becomes one of the designs of your original problem. This may not be optimal design, but this is a feasible design. This design is something for which the value of j may not be minimal, but it is definitely a feasible design if all values of xi are positive. In particular, if xm plus 1 till xn are set to 0, the above solution is called as a basic solution. In the basic solution, there are no more than m non-zero design variables. Okay. The variables xi, I varying from 1 to m are called as the basic variables, and the variables which are xm plus 1 till xn are called as the non-basic variables. As I said, non-basic variable, as long as they have a value which is non-negative, I get different designs for the system. Now you calculate the value of j and check up whether which is the value which produces negative, the minimum value for j, and that becomes my optimal design. So this is what is said. If all bi dash I varying from 1 to 10 in the solution are not equal to the basic solution is the basic feasible solution, because xi I greater than or equal to 0 for variables I varying from 1 to m. It is possible to perform the pivoting operation even after this. Now, next thing is, why is it that we did the pivotal things? Why is it that we produced this equation which looked like this for the variables x1 to xm and xm plus 1 to xn were considered non-pivotal solutions? It is not essential. For example, I can choose any one of the design variable from xm plus 1 to xn and make it a pivotal variable, or the variables for which I have a diagonal entries 1 and non-diagonal equal to 0. So such thing is possible. You can do this. So if you do this, then you get a solution which is different than what we had earlier solutions, and we call such a solution as a neighboring solution. This new canonical system yields a new basic solution, and this solution may or may not be basic feasible solution. We'll have to make sure that it is basic feasible solution. That means the value for xi is greater than 0 will have to be seen. So basically what I do is I keep changing the pivotal, I keep changing the pivot from one variable to another variable between xi to x1 to xn variables, and I get different solutions. As I get different solutions, I get different different value for j, which is defined in terms of all x1 to xn. And you have to find out the negative value, the most least value for j, which turns out to be the solution to the problem. So I think, it's a good idea to sort of have a look at what I have said just now through an example. So let us have a look at the example and let us see if it makes some sense. So here I have equality conditions which are 3 in number, and the number of variables is 4. So I have equation 1, equation 2, equation 3. So 3 equations, number of variables is x1, x2, x3 and x4. So n is equal to 4 and m is equal to 3. Now what can be done is I'll do some pivotal operation and convert these variables into, convert this equation into a new set of equations by pivoting operation. So here for example, the first equation is actually half of the original old equation. The subscript indicates the the equation which is either, see, if I take the first equation and divide it by half, multiply it by half, x21 becomes x1, 3x2 becomes 3 by 2 x2, etc., etc. So if I compare the first equation from the top system of equation to the top equation, the first equation of the bottom system of equations, it looks like this. Now I do the second operation, row operation, and then the third row operation. Then you will realize that the first three equations which are shown on the top, they are modified to the equations which are at the bottom, and I have converted the first entry in the first, the second and the third equation as 0. And like that, I keep doing the operations. But basically, if you keep doing these row operations, and finally, ultimately, you get the equation which is shown here. Bottom sets of system of equations is what you will get finally. So if you look at this, you realize the following. Here it is. This equation, if you look at, this is pivotal operation. You will see that x1 now is equal to 2, x2 is 1, and x3 is 3. If x4 is put to 0. So that becomes my basic feasible equation, basic feasible solution. In a basic feasible solution, the non-pivotal variables are set to 0. So I am going to put x4 is equal to 0 all through, and then the solution will become x1 into x1 is equal to 2, x2 is equal to 1, and x3 is equal to 3. So that is what is written here. So it can be seen that x1, x2, x3 can be now written in terms of x4 like this. 2 minus x4, 1 plus x4, and 3 minus x3. So I can choose whatever value of x4 I choose. So if I choose x4 is equal to 0, you get basic feasible solution which is in terms of x1. It is not essential that the pivoting operation is done for x1, x2, x3, but I can do it for something else also. So here the way it is written, what is it now, x2, x3. So you can keep doing this And I think you can get, depending on what value of x4 that you choose, you get different solutions to this problem. Okay. So for example, here, if I do the transformations in this slide, my x1, x1, x2 and x4 can be written in terms of x3. So x1, x2 and x4 are becoming a basic variable while x3 becomes a non-basic variable. And like that, I keep doing this whole thing. And finally, it so happens you get various solutions one after the other. And for each one of these solution, you find out what is the value of j. So this procedure will give you 4 basic solutions. 2 of them were basic feasible solutions, in the sense the value of x1, value of x were positive or greater than positive or equal to 0. So that means it was basic feasible solution. And you find out the cost function of the basic feasible solution. So out of 4 solutions, we had 2 solutions which are acceptable. 2 are not acceptable. You find out the expression for j, or the value of the cost function, in terms of those acceptable basic solutions, and check up which is the one which is negative. So like the least. The one which is least is what we are looking at. I'm sorry, I'm not able to explain it in terms of too many terms involved in it. But let me speak it out in terms of words and see if it makes sense. So the solution methodology in LP is what is given here in this slide in terms of words. Find out one basic solution to the problem. So you can choose whatever variables that you feel like as a pivotal solutions, and remaining solutions n minus m can be non-pivotal solution. But anyway, get the solution for one of the m variables as basic pivotal solutions. You will have put 0 for non-pivotal solutions. So you get the value for m pivotal variables. They are required to be positive. If they are positive, then we call it a basic feasible solution, and this is one of the acceptable solution, or one of the solution to the problem that we are looking at. Now, out of you take out one variable from m variable, from the basic variable, and put it in the non-basic variable, and you take out one of the variable from non-basic variable and include it in the basic variable. Find out the solution to the problem again. And like that, you can keep doing it. So you will have one more solution, or the several more solutions, depending on how many times you keep doing it. You will generate so many basic solutions, and some of those basic solutions you will have basic feasible solutions. Now choose for each one of these basic feasible solution the cost. Find out the now comes the, having said this, how do I actually write an algorithm when I say you produce so many basic feasible basic solutions, check up whether one of the basic solution is a feasible solution. It's all fine, but you need to have an algorithm so that you are able to code this methodology. So what is the complexity in this methodology? If there are n variables and m equality constraints, and if m is greater than n is greater than m, a basic solution can be obtained by setting any one of the n minus m variables to 0 and finding out the remaining m variables. The number of basic solutions to be inspected, therefore, is equal to the number of ways in which m variables can be selected from n variables. Number of such solutions is factorial n divided by factorial of n minus m into factorial m. This is what it is. So this is the combination of the solutions, this is the number of solutions which are possible when the problem has n number of variables and m equality constraints. Supposing that we are looking at a problem where there are 20 design variables, M equality constraints, the number of solutions that we are looking at, which we are required to produce, is close to 1,84,000. It's a huge number. It's a huge number. So if you are solving a design problem, the number of designs that we are looking at is 1,84 designs. Imagine what it means. It's a very large number of variables, that number of designs that we are looking at. Assuming each solution takes seconds or 1 second, this will require close to 1 week of computation. And then it so happens only some of them will be feasible, in the sense the values for the design variables will be positive. So this obviously cannot be done. So we need a systematic method which examines a sequence of basic feasible solutions, each of which corresponds to the lower cost of the cost function until a minimum is reached. And if possible, it should be monotonic and it should be faster. The simplex method is a powerful scheme for obtaining the basic feasible solution, which is heuristic. So this is what it is. The simplex method helps in finding out the neighboring physical solution which has a lower or equal value of the cost function heuristically. This method is iterative and it hopefully reduces the cost of the function monotonically. The iterations are carried out until in a finite number of steps an optimal is found. So this is what it is, and I think we'll take a small breather here and check up whether I have communicated what I wanted to a certain level of clarity. Is there anything that anybody would like to ask?
Okay, seems I don't have any chat windows. I mean, I don't have any chat
You are not
responses.
able to, you are not seeing any chat
No,
response.
no.
Okay. Unfortunately, there are a lot of terminology and a lot of ideas which cannot be explained on computer remotely. So pardon me if I am not able to communicate things very properly. Anyway, so let's go to the third part of this talk. And the third part starts talking with actually the simplex algorithm, the way it is required to be coded. So supposing that there are m equality constraints and n design variables, let us look at the way the simplex algorithm can be explained. Simplex algorithm can be explained. Remember, I'm now talking about a very specific algorithm. I'm not talking about linear programming. Linear programming is a statement of the problem. Simplex algorithm is the methodology for solving the linear programming problem. So the simplex algorithm says if n variables are given and m equality constraints are given, arrange the equations in the form which is shown below. So you will see that these equations, equality constraints, are rewritten, reorganized as follows. The first equation is exactly the same as what was given to us, but it is written where x1 is pivotal variable. It's the variable which has 1 as the coefficient, and subsequent m minus 1 coefficients are 0. Okay. So diagonal entries of the first m equations would be 1. Off diagonal entries of the first m equations will be 0. But the coefficients of the entries m plus 1 to xn in all m equations would be not necessarily 0. So you arrange your equations, m equations, in this form. Okay. Typically, linear in simplex algorithm, J is replaced by F for some historic reasons. So you will realize that instead of J, I have put what is F. F is same as J. There is no difference. This is what it is. And F naught is the value of J or F with the earlier values of x. So, for example, x1 is b1, x2 is b2, etc., etc. Because I'm going to put xm plus 1 is equal to 0, xm plus 2 is equal to 0, etc., etc. So you come to this level of equations. Remember, how to arrive at this equation is 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 a different thing altogether, and that is called phase 1 of the simplex algorithm, which we are not talking for the time being. So given m equations and n variables, arrive at this setup, this sort of format of these equations. Okay. We have also added m plus first equation, which was initially not there. The system of equations which are equality constraints. So this is added. Once you do this, then all you need to do is you consider this as if it's a solution of simultaneous equations and apply the pivotal algorithm to get the solution for all the design variables by changing pivotal variable from one variable to another variable, one after the other. And like that, you keep doing it. So once these equations are written down like this, the basic solution for the above problem is xi becomes bi. x1, for example, will be b1, x2 is, for example, will be b2, etc., etc., etc. And f will be f naught, and like that. Note that the basic solution is feasible if and only if xi is greater than 0, which is not necessarily, doesn't happen. But while you're doing the operations, it may so happen bi double dash may turn out to be positive or negative. If it is positive, it is fine. Then it's a feasible solution. If it doesn't turn out to be positive, it's a infeasible solution, because xi in that case will be negative, which is not permitted. And like that, you keep doing the operations. Now, as I said here, instead of taking the first m variables as the pivotal variables, you may choose one of the variable out of n minus m xm plus 1 to xn variables as a pivotal variable, and drop one of the variable from x1 to xm as drop the variables and make it unpivotal variable, and then you will get the next neighboring solution. And like that, you can produce these solutions one after the other. But even before you do this, if you examine the current solution, we'll come to know whether we have arrived at the optimal solution or not optimal solution. I think instead of talking in terms of words, let me go to the examples, which is a better way of doing things. Let me start with an example and see if I can explain this in the time that's given to me. Let us try to look at this example. Supposing that I am given this as a problem. This problem is maximize f x1 plus 2 times x2 plus x3 subjected to constraints which are these three, one after the other, and all xi are positive. So this is a statement of the problem given. Can I attempt this problem? We cannot attempt this problem because it is not written in the standard form, or what we call as the canonical form. For example, f is required to be maximum is what is given the statement. But in a linear programming methodology, we always minimize the function. So instead of capital F, I will write small f, which is negative of capital F. So x1 plus 2, x2 plus x3 is written as minus x1 plus minus x2 minus x3. What are the constraints? The constraints, the way they are given, the first equation, the second equation, and the third equation, they are given less than or equal to greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. At least first thing that I'll do is I'll convert the second inequality constraints to, so that it, instead of greater than or equal to, it becomes less than or equal to. Even then it is not acceptable. I'll convert that into equality later on anyway. So equations which are given on the top are converted into equations which are given below. Then those equations will, instead of inequalities, you convert them into equalities. Now the number of variables which were 3 will become 6 now, because 3 inequalities will be converted into equalities by addition of the slack variable or the other variable. So the equations which we had earlier written down here, 2x1 plus x2 minus x3, will have been added with other other variables x4, x5, x6. x4, x5, x6 are the variables which I have added to convert inequality into equality. Okay. And I have added one of the equation which is for the cost function, which is in terms of x1, x2, x3, and that f will not have a contribution from x4, x5, x6. So now the problem which was given to me earlier has been converted into this problem, where there are 6 variables and only 6 variables, and then there are 4 equations. Okay. Now, once you do this, you will see the solution to this problem is available directly. For example, x4 will be x2, x5 will be 6, and x6 will be equal to 6. Because this is the basic way, and then the contribution of x4, x5, x6 is supposed to be 0, because these are non-basic variables. Remember, non-basic variables we always put equal to 0, and f will turn out to be 0, because it is like any other pivotal variable. This basic variable is feasible but not optimal are the coefficients. I think, like that we keep doing it one after the other. And as I keep changing the pivotal variable from one set of from let's say x1, x2, x3 to other variables, the solutions will keep varying. I think this way you will have to go through the slides. I am not able to explain it very properly. The slides are given and we don't have much time for it. So